Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. A massively dramatic day of seed action here from start to finish. Drama all across the park and all of these series we've got to dive into. Chiefly really among them the Los Angeles Thieves drama situation. Rumours emerging that things behind the scenes are not pretty in the Thieves camp. Jacob then denies the allegations, but after the result against Ultra, questions will definitely be raised. Plenty else though, of course, to get into as well. Very much on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's just dive straight in. This was, according to Doug Levy, the probabilities going into the day on a winner's bracket start. So OpTic, Toronto, Heretics already confirmed as it stands based on current situations, at least in terms of probabilities, but some teams very much up in the air, such as the Seattle Surge. Very interesting series today. My feeling was for this series, after seeing what happened to Surge against Toronto, that Surge might be kind of a gatekeeper team to the top 4, but they're not good enough to be there right now. So this to me was a test as to whether Heretics can prove that they actually could be a contender, right? Because you look at the league, you see the top 4 teams that should be contenders, and outside of that, you don't see much else. Surge aren't it, really. Thieves aren't it. We can definitely say that for sure. Boston, I don't think, are it either, based on the results we've seen today. So, of all the teams that could be it, Heretics were the only one remaining, really. This, I think, was their test to show that they can do it. Sure, the first few series they played weren't against great teams. This was definitely a bigger test than they've had so far, and game 1 wasn't that close. Surge took it. I will say, though, that, look, Surge are good on the AR maps. If you force a map where Abuzah has to run a sub, it does become a bit more questionable for them, and I think that this might be something other teams can exploit. Heretics is still a very fun team to watch. They probably should have had a better chance in map 2. Couple of rounds they arguably could or should have won. That went the other way. Huke was very impressive here as well. So Surge quickly go up 2-0. There were, to be fair, some points about gentlemen's agreements being broken, even in this control, and that is not the only GA drama of this series, as we'll see here in a couple of minutes' time. But in the end, a very close fought control. Heretics do win it here on the invasion. Got to say, man, I'm really frustrated seeing so much invasion. If you thought Garu 2 control was bad in Vanguard, if you thought Fortress control was bad last year, Invasion is actually very similar, if not worse. I'm pretty sure I saw some of the numbers. I'll just see if I can find them here real quick for you guys. Here we go. Total put this out today. This is earlier in the day, but still. Invasion currently has the lowest offensive win rate we've ever seen, even worse than MW2 Fortress. So it's just such a drag to watch. Like, I don't hate watching this game, but man, Invasion control will kill me if we keep seeing this year, honestly. It's so bad to watch, I'm not gonna lie. But to be fair, Heretics did it. They finally won an offense at like such a time of asking. Arsties didn't do much this map. To be honest, Arsties, like, when Heretics were trying to do the reverse sweep, he was not really present for a lot of the time, and there is questions raised about that because I do think Surge still have too many ARs, and there's lots of people saying, well, what if you know, theoretically took out Arsties and put in a player like a Seam? Then all of a sudden you've got Abuzah on the main, maybe, Illy on the flex, 2 proper SMGs. I think they will have to consider that if things don't change, because they very arguably could have lost this series. They got slammed on the Skid Row hardpoint bad, almost put in the 100-point club. And then map 5 Search and Destroy, they do win, but they were arguably lucky to win it, Surge, because Heretics had a few first bloods they really should have converted, didn't. So no, Surge bailed themselves out of those situations by playing well, and maybe somewhat too well. Heretics will feel like they should have reverse swept. I think that both of these teams find themselves in that kind of like, you know, gatekeepers to the top 4 team situation. Heretics, I was hoping they would win just to kind of prove they might be a contender with the top guys, because I think Surge have proved that they're not really over the last couple of days, but seems like the top 4 is the top 4, as we probably expected. But these two teams pretty good, fun to watch. There was drama, though, as there always is, around GAs. We know that Abuzah was blacklisted for breaking the single tap to run GA. Lucky then comes out and says that they keep breaking GAs. Now, there was some further reaction to this. I'm sure there'll be further clips coming out tonight and further analysis. I'm not really going to go into too much more detail on this now, just because we have plenty else to discuss, but potentially even more cheating drama emerging over there at the moment. But then this was a very interesting series as well, Gorillas versus Boston. I told you guys earlier today I had this as kind of like a 50-50, and you know, I think that was probably an accurate assessment, really. But Boston just not good enough, right? We saw what they did against Toronto, right? Very impressive series before Christmas. But yeah, Gorillas, we know Gorillas are legit. Like, they're a solid team, decent team. They were pretty competitive against FaZe. We know they're a solid unit, but a good team should be able to beat them. Gorillas are kind of in that, top 6, top 8 kind of range. But if you want to be a serious contending team that's going to potentially make finals or make championship Sundays, I think you've got to be putting Gorillas down. Breach could not do it here. They lost the game 1. They won the search, which is, I would say, it's pretty concerning. But if you're Boston and the only map you're taking against Gorillas is the search, like that's in theory the team that, you'd think that the weaker teams on paper are the ones that are more likely to take the searches rather than the respawns. So the idea that Boston lost 3 respawns to Gorillas is impressive for LAG. I actually think they're a really legit team, but I wasn't impressed by Boston. And again, it's kind of what we saw pre-Christmas when they really require certain players to deliver, right? I mean, Sasha had a good map 1, 2, whatever. He had a good couple of maps before the control began, and after that it fell off a cliff, really. And Snoopy, lots of pressure on this guy, had a bit of a stinker this series. Priestahh was the only one statistically doing okay. So yeah, loads of questions I've got to say still on Boston. These were the overall numbers here. Massive credit to Gorillas, but yeah, Snoopy with a 0.7, right? He went from like a 1.4, whatever it was in that series against Toronto, to now half that KD roughly. Priestahh was only just about in the green. The entire Gorillas team, very impressive numbers. And then Fame actually kind of wild, right? Because Fame, there's been pressure on him. He's not been performing that well against many teams. He comes in against Boston and absolutely slams them. So, Gorillas now 2-3, Boston 1-4. That might kind of spell the end of their hopes. Okay, they could still possibly do it because 3-4 is probably going to be enough with a good map count. But, this could mean a loser's bracket start for Boston at the home major, which is not a good sign when we know that team last year made numerous changes to try and improve. This team as it stands does not look like it's going to be it. I do expect them to improve over time, but there might not be enough time to make that work. Now, before this Thieves series began, this was the drama going down with regard to, well, potential behind the scenes stuff. Now, this has been a rumor. Not just MettalZ has been saying this. Other people as well have been saying that Thieves behind the scenes, it's not necessarily been so pretty in their practice and everything. But MettalZ comes out and says that, as far as he's heard, he maybe had some sources saying that there's arguments behind the scenes and things aren't going all swimmingly in the Thieves camp. So I'll share the clip.
Could be.
Yeah, I think Toronto spoke him here. I mean, I just think Toronto looked so good yesterday, and they're riding a high. I've heard rumors about Thieves that they just argue in practice with each other. They sit there bitching at each other.
Tough love.
Yeah? You heard that through the grapevine, bud?
Yep, the grapevine. I still have my sources. I won't say who, though.
No, I feel bad for Zinni here because he said this and I guess he realised that he either shouldn't have said this or what he'd heard it from wasn't maybe fully true. I'm not exactly sure of the full story behind this, but I mean, look, there was some reaction. Zinni then apologised to Cap for what he said on the stream, and I get it from both points of views. But nonetheless, it's still very interesting. We're going to talk about it. As Jacob says, no BS. I'm not just saying this to defend my team, although, maybe he is, but he says this is blatantly untrue. Zin doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. And, Bose replies, and then, MettalZ comes and says, okay, sorry, Cap, that's on me. But what do you guys think about this, right? Because there have definitely been rumours that Ghosty and Cammy or whatever, the big personalities on the team might not be getting along particularly well. We knew what happened before with Ghosty last year on OpTic. That wasn't necessarily an ideal scenario at the end of the season. And there were, big rumours that if Thieves didn't start the season so well, things weren't going to be pretty behind the scenes. So it's interesting, right? Because MettalZ says that he has people telling him one thing, and then a few minutes later he's saying, oh yeah, my bad, like, my mistake type thing, and Jacob's fully denying it. So sure, maybe Jacob's right, and there's absolutely no problems at all at Thieves, but they might well be after this series, because, this was indicative of a series, especially in the way they collapsed in the final map, of a team that isn't doing particularly well internally. They lost the game 1, pretty close game to be fair. They did, though, bounce back in the search and destroy. Insight was literally winning everything. It was absurd. I mean, look at this gun he wins. He jumps out the window here. That's what Shotzzy did against Drazah, I remember. Then he gets the final kill as well, but it was Ghosty that went massive in the round 11 here, gets a couple of big kills, clutches up to actually win them this map. So all of a sudden it's 1-1. They then go to an invasion control. I mean, I can't be bothered with this map anymore, to be honest. They play another, it was literally invasion. I could barely watch this series. It was so bad. Like, we really need more maps, man, I've got to say, because these series were entertaining. Like, they were very interesting, but man, invasion is tough to watch. So in the end, it's Thieves, again, that can't win their final offense. They got pretty close, to be fair, but Toronto closed it out. And then the final map of the series was a bloodbath, right? This Skid Row half, it wasn't even close. Like, Like, Toronto have just way more slaying, really, than Thieves do. Better teamwork, better cohesion, better chemistry. They're just going to win in this type of series. And yeah, did that Thieves performance, and especially that Thieves, let's say, reaction on the cameras after the maps they lost, look like a team that's perfectly all sunshine and rainbows internally? I'm not so convinced personally. So treat your thoughts on that in the comment section below. But have a look at the numbers. I mean, this is the perfect scoreboard, right, really, if you're Ultra. Scrappers are 1.4 with 93 kills and just an absurd amount of damage. Insiders are 1.2 but did great in the search and destroy. Envoy slaying big time as well. CleanX is like a 0.9 with lots of damage, lots of engagement. That is pretty much the perfect scoreboard from Toronto in many ways. And Thieves, not so much. Ghosty and Cammy, both 0.75. Afro was the only one positive. Not pretty for those guys. Ultra are legit, no doubt. But yeah, Thieves and Boston, both 1 in 4. Even Scrappy going on to roast Boston, saying they're just like online merchants. They didn't even play them in this series, right? But, he's talking about the Boston series they played before Christmas. They got beaten by, and he says that Boston are online merchants, but doesn't even really seem like that given the fact that Boston have not done particularly well online elsewhere. And the final series of the day, very interesting indeed. We talked about this earlier in the day on the Dope Chick episode, and I said that if OpTic lose this, it's indicative of some complacency problems they've had before. There's no doubt that OpTic come into a series against Vegas and expects to dominate them. We know what they did before against Carolina to close out the year. There was no doubt that OpTic were coming in here thinking they would bowl Vegas out of the park as far as I'm concerned. That was clearly not Vegas' plan. Not gonna lie, the way the vetoes went definitely gave Vegas a reasonable chance in this series. This is also an interesting stat that this was Attach's 70th career game against OpTic. His record against them isn't great, but actually every year of the CDL he's won on whatever team he's been on his first game against OpTic. This was another golden opportunity to do so. You don't often see scorelines like this. This is what happens when OpTic decide, as they like to do, to chow someone on Skid Row bad side. They did this against Surge. You guys might remember they played Surge. They got slammed the first rotation. Then they brought it back and won the game. This is what happens when they get slammed the first rotation. They don't bring it back and win the game. It happens, right? You start bad side Skid Row, which I'm almost certain they did on this case. Then Vegas get the P2 rotation. They get a big lead. And the pressure is on the team in OpTic's position to turn it around. They had their chances, they didn't take advantage of them. Purge and Stanley fried this map, and this looked like it was going to be the most dominant victory of the season by a very long way. It actually turned out to be, OpTic put up about 130 points here, but it wasn't great, and OpTic, yeah, they were not playing their best. Absolutely nowhere near they were playing their best at this particular point, and the Search and Destroy was going in a pretty similar way as well. Like, look, we know how good OpTic can be. We've seen that previously. I don't know what Purge was peaking there, to be honest. He did not need to, I don't think, channel that for Dashy, but whatever, gave Dashy the kill. Didn't matter in the end anyway. Purge did have a great Search and Destroy here, and Vegas went on to win it. But OpTic, look, they can be vulnerable. It's an online league game. I think they probably came into this series. Vegas obviously were really dialed in. And when you play a couple of terminals and you start from bad side Skid Row, it does open the door, right? Because terminal, very defensive heavy map in Search and Destroy, very rotation heavy map in hardpoint. This was winnable from Vegas' point of view. But OpTic, when they actually came to play after the mid-series break, just came to play, and we just saw why they're better than Vegas. But yeah, still, I think OpTic will, this if anything could be a good thing for OpTic, just because they know that they can't afford to come out slow like that, because if they come out like that against a better team, they are going to get punished for it. But Vegas just weren't good enough as, when push came to shove. Kind of cool as well to see Stanley using this like OG creddy jump spots. There was also a couple of other ways to get up here as well. I believe there's like a crane on the other side. You can jump from that up to this now that you couldn't previously. But it kind of worked for Stanley, but actually it didn't matter because OpTic won this round anyway, and they took a quick 3-0 here. So as soon as they lost the control, Vegas, it felt like the series was not over, but it really felt like OpTic would have a hard time losing it at this point. It really felt like the momentum was very much in their favor, as it proved to be. Again, though, the terminal hardpoint, this can kind of go either way, but I was impressed by OpTic's rotations. Kenny as well. Look, we saw what Kenny did to, in many ways, single-handedly win them Skid Row hardpoints previously. That did not happen this time, but Kenny went double positive in the control, 30 and 15, and just basically said, all right, I'm going to take over now, and was again influential here in this final hardpoint. OpTic just always had the rotation, the burger to that P5 bookshop hill. it always is a guaranteed load of points, and OpTic managed it pretty well. They nearly threw away, they probably should have just got the full 60 and won it on Burger Town, but they got broken, a couple of nades came through, Vegas gave it a decent go, but in the end OpTic just always had the favourable spawns, and if you have the favourable spawn, there's no other outcome. And then it was just a Vegas collapse, right? I mean, we saw what's happened previously when Vegas had played this map. OpTic, I don't think had played this map yet, but Kenny starts off 4-1, and Vegas come through. Look, we know they played Carolina on this map, and they somehow collapsed a 5-3 lead, got ninja defused, got ace round 11. So I was in no illusions that Vegas were going to lose this map, and that's what happened. They just got slammed. No composure from Vegas. And I think this is the issue when you're Vegas. You go up 2-0, you feel like you're about to win, you lose map 3, all of a sudden, all you can think in your head is, we're going to get reverse swept. And, you know, oftentimes you manage to manifest that reality. Shotzzy got a nice ace here as well to put them to 5-1, but at this point it felt like it was pretty much already over. And then Dashy clutched a nice little 1v2 as well at the end. So it was all going OpTic's way. They've shown why they were the far superior team in this series, and they, you know, save what would have been a very embarrassing defeat. So icy little reverse sweep there from the OpTic boys. Loads of storyline today. Very much interested your thoughts on all of them in all the comment sections below. If there's only one comment section, you know what I mean. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Take care, and I will see you next time.